Good morning, everyone. It's 8:30. We'll call this morning's meeting of the Clay County Board of Commissioners to order for Tuesday, November 23rd. Our first item is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Mojo. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard on items not on the agenda? Any citizens to be heard? Anything online?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Steve. We'll move on to the approval of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve bills and vouchers.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Kaylee, second by Commissioner Ettinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Minutes from November 9th.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We'll move into our 8:35 item, our COVID-19 update with Public Health Director Kathy McKay and Nursing Director Jamie, and we also have Becky with us again this morning. Good morning.
Okay, I'll start with our active cases this week. As you can see, the number of active cases just went down slightly, not a big dip, but 39 cases less in Clay County. However, in Minnesota, we still see the numbers going up, so 2,500 more than we saw last week. In Cass County, the numbers have dipped a little bit. Still elevated, but there's a little bit of a decrease in the Cass County numbers. And the active cases in North Dakota have decreased a little bit. Now, as we look at the active cases, it's always fluid. And as Becky always talks about is, it's trying to catch up with the cases after they go through the process. So they can go up and down, particularly with viruses. But the concern, of course, is as we head into the winter months, this is a respiratory virus, so it's just more likely to spread. So a lot of the cases across the United States, the northern states of the U.S. are clearly still in high transmission. And so that's certainly a concern, especially with some of the holidays up and coming as well. Cases by age, we see that the 5 to 9-year-olds are still the high numbers of children. But we're also seeing the uptick in the 30 to 49 age groups as well. The total cases cumulatively by age, so this is the reported cases across the pandemic. So we're at 11,817 cases for the entire pandemic, and through the pandemic, it's the 20 to 24 range that's the highest. This is cases per week, so from July to current. So there's been an upward trend since the beginning of August, and so for the week of the 14th through the 20th, there's 299 cases so far. The week before, we had 347 reported cases, so again, slightly down from last week. And then the overview of the cases, again, throughout the pandemic, the numbers started March of 2020, and so you can see the last bar is the 299. No indication about, we were hoping to reach a peak by now in this fourth wave, but again, with the virus, it's been so unpredictable that we're still in that fourth wave, which is way longer than a typical wave. So we're not sure that we've reached a peak yet. That is the unknown. And then we'll go to Becky.
Good morning. So this is the CDC graph that they put out on a weekly basis, so just the level of community transmission. So as we can see, Clay County and all of Minnesota remains in that high level of community transmission. And so these numbers reflect case numbers between November 14th and the 20th. This graph depicts Clay County deaths reported by week. Unfortunately, we've had 2 additional Clay County residents that have died since we reported last week, so our total number of deaths throughout the pandemic is at 102. And then this graph again is the number of COVID hospital admissions per week for Clay County residents. We are seeing another increase in hospitalizations, which is typical, after we see a surge of cases. So for the week of 11/7, we had 15 admissions and 9 admissions reported so far for last week. Again, that number can go up as the data comes through and gets updated. It is concerning that we haven't seen this level of hospital admissions since last November. And then this is the hospital capacity for our local healthcare systems in Fargo. At the time of this report, Essentia had 3 staffed ICU beds for adults and 0 staffed pediatric ICU beds. Sanford had 3 adult ICU beds and 1 pediatric ICU bed available. And the Fargo VA did not have any adult ICU beds available at the time of this report. Statewide, there was 19 available adult ICU beds and 7 pediatric ICU beds. And then this is this slide shows statewide hospitalization data for North Dakota as of yesterday. So there are currently 163 hospitalized due to COVID, with 21 in the ICU. So this is an increase in the number of patients in the ICU from last week when there were 16. The chart in the middle shows current hospitalizations broken down by age. So currently there's 4 pediatric admissions. And then the chart on the right again just shows the age groups of total admissions throughout the pandemic. And this is the updated graphic from the Sanford healthcare system. We feel a little bit like a broken record every week showing this, but again, we continue to see the same trend. The red people represent those that are not vaccinated, the white represent those that are. The overwhelming majority of hospitalized cases continue to be among the unvaccinated. So 44 of the 47 patients currently on ventilators are not vaccinated. And then this is the breakthrough data that's put out by the Minnesota Department of Health every week. Again, seeing the same trends. Our breakthrough cases are going up a little bit per week, which we expect. So 2.569% of those that are fully vaccinated have wound up testing positive for COVID. Breakthrough hospitalizations continue to be low at 0.111%, and breakthrough deaths continue to be even lower at 0.019%.
Jamie?
Good morning. Okay, looking at the statewide vaccine data as of November 18th, for those 5 and up now, we're looking at people with at least 1 dose of vaccine, 69% across Minnesota, and looking at those who've completed the series at 64. So we're going backwards because we're adding a lower age group, and that's what we're seeing. And we did add, for the first time here, we have the number of people in the state that have had the 3rd and the booster doses administered. So 816,163 people have had that 3rd dose or booster dose. And if you remember, that 3rd dose early on was for those with compromised immune systems, so they're in there as well. And then just the breakdown of the population by age. So for the 5 to 11-year-olds, we're at 16% with that 1st dose and 0 for the 2nd. Because of the approval, and then the 12 to 15, 60%. And then again, what we're seeing is pretty consistently across Minnesota, the 96% of the 65 and over have had that 1st dose, and then 93% have completed the series, and hopefully a very large percentage of them have also had their booster dose as well. And then the total population down at the bottom, 65% have had 1 dose and 60% have completed that series. So So yeah, so that's making slowly but surely making progress with those vaccines. And then we'll look at Clay County data. So Clay County Public Health to date has administered 17,266 doses. Last week at our clinic, we had 454 doses. We continue to offer the first and second doses, very minimal first and second doses. I think we'd had just one of the first doses, but continue to offer those, and we had the children's vaccine available. We continue to hold evening clinics for families. This week, we have a clinic today, or actually we have 2 clinics today. We'll have just one because of Thanksgiving. But we have this morning from 10 to 2, we have Moderna first and second doses and booster doses available. The Pfizer first and second doses for 12 years and older, and then the booster doses for 18 and older. And, you know, although Minnesota Department of Health has really encouraged us not to turn anyone away, previously it was about people that had chronic health conditions or had an exposure in the workplace. But really, they've said anyone who is 18 and over could have that vaccine. But now that door has officially been opened, so anyone 18 or over is eligible for their booster as long as the time frame of the 6 months for Moderna and Pfizer or the 2 months for the Johnson & Johnson. So hoping that we'll get lots of people to sign up for that one. And then we kind of split it up, and we're going to do an evening clinic again from 3 to 6, inviting our families to come in with their kids. So Pfizer first doses, 5 to 11-year-olds. Pfizer first and second doses for those 12 and older, and then Pfizer booster doses 18 years and older this afternoon. Both of those clinics are in the Family Service Center, and then we have already scheduled 3 clinics for next week as well. So, any questions about that?
Questions? Yes, Commissioner Abier.
Yeah, we've got the Pfizer vaccine. If somebody needs a booster and they've had Moderna or J&J, the Pfizer would be adequate.
Yes, you can mix and match those if you've got your first or second doses and your Pfizer doses. We do not have any Johnson & Johnson vaccine with us anymore at this point. We did last week, but we don't this week. But you could have either the Pfizer or Moderna if you've had a first and second dose.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you.
Just going to point out here, I try to look for some positives and a lot of negatives here. And, you know, the fact that prior to vaccines being available, we had 92 deaths in Clay County. Since that vaccine's been available, that number has dropped to 10. To me, that's certainly another indication for those who may be questioning that the vaccine is working.
Absolutely.
And when you compare that chart to the charts of number of cases, the same thing applies. You see a lowering of the numbers. I mean, it's everybody's individual choice to whether they get the vaccine or not, but there certainly seems to be very good data that supports what you folks have been talking about for quite some time. So, Commissioner Cayley, I saw your hand up first.
Another thing I noticed when I was looking at the data today is our total cases were 11,817, so pretty close to 12,000. And if you look at the population of our county, that means about 1 in 5 people in our county has had COVID so far. And that seems really high, but that also leaves 4 out of 5 that haven't had it yet. So yes, that vaccine is still important to protect that 4 out of 5 or those that could get reinfected.
Commissioner Abier.
Yep, I'm going to restate the obvious, but Thanksgiving this week, Christmas coming up, a lot of travel. If you've been to an airport in the last 3 months, you know it's like spending hours in an elevator. Mm-hmm. If people are going to get together, if they're going to get together as families, if they're going to travel, if any of this, get in and get a shot. Get a booster if you've already had your vaccines. If not, just get the vaccine. It's not a political statement. It's taking your health and the health of people around you into consideration. And it's supported by science. So I don't want to get preachy, but it's just such an obvious thing you can do and people around here will load up sandbags and break their backs for a week to take care of their neighbors. You can go get a shot in the arm. It's just what you do.
All right, did you want to touch on this, or have we touched on
Oh,
this?
sorry.
I don't even have it.
Yes, so we do have the testing report that we get regularly from Minnesota Department of Health. And so the testing continues at the Vault testing site. And it's both saliva, the PCR testing, as well as the rapid tests. So we see that the last week of November 14th. So we had number of tests were 741, 758 the week before. So it continues to be utilized. I've had some comments from people that have been in for the rapid test, and 10 minutes they have the results. So it's a good opportunity for people to be able to get the rapid test. And they are, I unfortunately don't remember the dates or the days of the week they're open. Do you have that, Jamie?
I'm looking for it. But the one thing that has really been an asset is that they are open on Sundays now. So that was, families were looking for, can I test my child before they have to go to school on Monday? So that's been a real plus as well, so.
I think it's Friday, Saturday that they are not open, but they're open the rest of the days of the week. So, and you see the percentage, the positivity rate for each week. So, the week before it was 14.23%, now it's 12.45%. And we do know that you can see the Minnesota residents that get tested, but we're still accepting people from outside of, so from North Dakota mostly, that can come to our site and get tested as well.
Commissioner Kaylee.
I just looked up the hours so I can say
Thank you.
concretely what it says. That test site is open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 11 to 6 p.m. and Sunday from 11 to 4 p.m.
Thank you.
While you're here, I want to shift gears for a minute and give a partial report of my committee report, and it dealt with the ARPA committee, and we had a brief discussion yesterday about the potential of this OSHA ruling that might come out from the federal government in regards to businesses over 100. And when we talk about this, we're simply talking about Clay County and our Clay County employees right now. And in the event that this were to go through, we had some discussions about, for those who, there's basically a couple of options that can happen. You can either can have the vaccine, or you can, if you chose not to do that, then it becomes a weekly test. And I believe, Darren, there is a third option where well, I think even under the third option, if they did that, they would still have to test. And that's where if they claim some sort of religious reason for not doing that. But I guess just for you, just to be thinking about and maybe be ready to report to us, because I'm looking more for, certainly we want to offer on-site. That's the discussions we've been having internally as a committee, that we want to be able to make sure our employees can be tested on site rather than have to. Now, obviously, there's some outlying facilities of ours that would probably have to come here, but I think the key thing, and we're going to be talking a little bit about this coming up, but the numbers and the number of test kits that we might have to have available for that type of thing. So all of those things. And the coordination of the weekly monitoring and the checklist of so there's going to need to be some cooperation from your department with that whole process. So just so you're aware that our ARPA committee has been discussing that, and we might be forced into that situation. And it's more of right now, just to keep that on your radar, that we might have to, and that might mean, staffing issues.
Right.
Having that available. Okay. Because we don't know what those numbers are, what percentage of our county employees are vaccinated versus not.
Right.
If this goes through, we will have to know that, so. Okay, does anybody else have anything for public health this morning?
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just in response a little bit to that, I did order some test kits. So we have some in stock, just in anticipation that if we have to do this, we'll have some test kits available. I can't remember what the number is, how many we have, but, you know, we can order more. But we have some at the ready, and of course, we're providing vaccines, so.
Right. And I, you know, and I know Darren, maybe you can just give me a head nod, but it seems to me that ruling right now, as it was proposed by OSHA, would be for a 6-month time period, okay. So we could potentially right now see if that were, and right now, if it wasn't for a judge's order to stop it right now, that would take effect as a January 4th.
Yeah.
January 4th. So in the event that judge's ruling is overturned, we need to be ready. So I'm just, hopefully you're.
We have been discussing some of that.
All right, good.
In the event that would be required to have testing on site. And of course, the vaccinations will continue, so.
Yes. All right, Commissioner Kaylee.
Yesterday was Public Health Worker Thank You Day. Thank you to all of you, to your team. This has been a grueling marathon, and it's still going. I'm sorry, it's still going, but thank you. You are so appreciated, you are so respected, and the work you're doing is so important.
Thank you. We didn't quite make it to the White House to get an official thank you, because there was an event there, but we
Well, you
didn't
made it
quite
to the
make it.
courthouse.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
See you next week.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move into our 850 line item, or agenda item. That is a request to fill vacancy for juvenile counselor position in the secure unit. James. Director, good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm here requesting to fill a vacancy that we have in our secure unit. The funding is already in our 2021 budget, and there'll be a savings between the employee leaving and a possible new hire. I'd also request permission of backfill in the event that gets filled in-house.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the request with the possibility for backfill if needed.
Second.
All right, a motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right,
Thank you.
James, thank you. All right, request approval to purchase Stalker radars. Sheriff Empting, good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Thanks for having us this morning. Here today to request to purchase 11 new Stalker radars for our patrol division. At this particular time, the company that we order these from are having a promotional offer to where if we were to get these 11, they'd give us 3 for free. So we'd bring a total up to 14 purchased. And I know currently there are times where Lieutenant Schroeder is having to send some of our radars in for repair and things like that, so it's probably a good time to replace them. As you can see, we have ample funds in the internal service to replace these radars, and we'd also use $5,000 from our DUI forfeiture fund. That way we're not completely depleting internal service, because we still have 4 other radars that we may have to replace in the future. So we'll leave some funds there for those replacements as well.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. Sheriff, what is your current timeline for internal service replacement? Do we have a timeline for these?
These are about 7 to 9 years that we like to replace these. That's the recommendation from the folks that come out every year and do our radar certifications and verifications. We put them in internal service for about 7 to 9 years.
Okay. You know, I think this makes sense in order to get some for no cost, but, you know, I'm not sure if this is something, because it's such a large purchase, that we should have more. I know with some of our other departments, we have, you know, that graphed out on exactly when the replacements come up, so that we're not having them all at once, basically.
Where do these funds come from? I mean, I know you're getting 5,000 from DUI funds. Where's the rest of these funds come from? Or
Through our internal service account.
That you allocate funds.
We allocate
to
every year,
plan
yeah.
for purchases.
Each year, a percentage of its life value gets put into an account, and it gets saved up for when it comes necessary to replace them, so. All right, did you have more questions, Commissioner Gross? Commissioner Ebinger?
Sheriff, how many radar units have you got, and how many are due for replacement at this time?
We have, I believe, 18 or 19 radars, I believe, and we would be replacing all 14 of them at this time.
So you've got 14 that are within that 7 to 9 year
We do.
replacement zone?
Yep.
Okay.
Just more out of curiosity, compared to the last time we purchased them, what's the price comparison?
We just purchased a radar earlier this year for one of our Tahoes, and the price is the same. So it hasn't gone up yet.
That's a rarity lately.
Right.
The things that we've been dealing with. So.
And they're giving some away for free on this.
That's even a bigger rarity. Yeah.
I move we approve this purchase.
second,
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Ebinger, second by Commissioner Gross. Any further discussion? Commissioner Kaylee?
I just have another question out of curiosity. How often are they tested for accuracy?
So before each shift, they do get tested for accuracy, and then we have a company come in once a year and make sure that everything is working on the internal side of them as well.
And then any that were off would be flagged for,
Yep, yep. And we did have that happen a couple of years ago where the company came in and said, this one's getting a little weak, it should be replaced, and we replaced that one at that time, and that one is not up in this quote.
I'm sure it's similar to a weights and measures type of a test that, you know, any fuel station, you know, that we have around has to have done for their accuracy of their pumps and that type of thing. It's all very similar, I'm sure.
I have a final question.
Yes.
Is there any anticipated revenue for disposal of the 14?
You know, I've thought about that. There's a possibility that we could look at maybe selling these to some smaller agencies, and we could put those out there to see if anybody is looking for these. But sometimes when they get to that end of life cycle, it does kind of get tough to sell them as well.
Because it's probably after the initial purchase, would then you apply any revenue, if any, to the internal service for replacement?
Any revenue that we would get from that would go back into internal service, yep.
Lieutenant Schroeder, anything to add today?
No, I have nothing.
Just here for reinforcements.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
You carry the other gun?
Just in the event there's any questions as far as the, how often we're sending them in for repair and things like that. He's the one that's doing all that at this point.
Yeah, and essentially some of the problems we run into is the displays themselves go out, they burn out, and that's, every time I send those in, that's over $200 every time for a repair. They get stuck on stationary mode, or, you know, when the squad's moving, they switch between moving and stationary automatically, and a lot of those problems that pop up internally, then we have to send them off right away, and then we have a squad running around without a radar, or if I send a couple off at a time, then that's $400 to $600 in repairs at a crack. And with the life of these things, some of them are really old, really old.
Commissioner Kaylee?
So with what you just said then, some of these that are still maybe okay, they're just towards the end of their lifespan, would you hold on to for backups for if something else was in for a repair?
We'll likely hang on to 2 of them for backups, just so, because we have had instances where we've had a couple gone. So we'll keep those, the ones that we can still sell without giving one to an agency that's going to cause them monetary damages. You know, then we'll sell those, but
right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. The motion carried. All right, that's done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next we have a request for approval of the 2022-2023 Natural Resources Block Grant Agreement funding for, and we have with us Troy Nelson.
Tony.
Or, excuse me, Tony.
He'll go by Troy.
I didn't have my reading glasses.
Troy, Tony, it's
Apparently I-
okay.
Sorry, Tony.
That's okay. No, it's fine. First of all, thank you for having me. I think I have met most everyone here, but for those of you that I have not met, my name is Tony Nelson. I am the Natural Resources Management Technician at the Clay Soil and Water Conservation District office. I was just recently hired last March, and so this is kind of my first go at this process here. There are, I think everybody was presented with this memo that I sent last week. There's a
Yes,
couple,
we-
yeah,
You have it.
couple of reasons that I'm here. First, to get this natural resources block grant signed so that we can get some local water management grant funding for both the Soil and Water Conservation District office as well as some county services that you guys provide also. In addition, in the past, the county has graciously supported the SWCD with what was traditionally a levy match. And that levy match requirement was removed back in 2019, but the county has continued to support that. And so I'm here to request that continued support so that we can continue to do the services or provide the services that we do for the county.
And Commissioner Moser reminds me that that is in our current
Yes, that is
levy budget.
part of the budget that Kevin came up and presented earlier this year, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Moser.
Thank you. I continue to support this. I think this has been a great opportunity for Clay County citizens to help support the motives and of the watershed district, or no, SWCD, I'm sorry, and watershed district, really. It's kind of the same work. And able to capture some funds for that. If you look at the memo in a 2-year snippet, there's a grant award of $82,728. That's really doing more with the dollars that we continue to invest, and the SWCD and your position has really been good stewards of making sure that the dollars go to the work. And so I would make a motion to support this request.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Moser, second by Commissioner Kaylee to approve the block grant agreement. Any other discussion?
I suppose maybe in my motion I should include that amount. I don't believe I did that. And so I think the amount would be $12,999. Is that correct?
Correct, that is correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Need your second, all right. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yes, you too.
All right, next we have a request to approve a grade increase for correctional officers. And we got our Human Resource Director Darren Brook here, and we have our Sheriff here, Justin is here.
Sir.
All right.
All right, well, thank you for having me. We've, as you probably know, Justin's been here many, many times to request new correctional officers. And with the current state of affairs, we've had several meetings on what we can do to retain and recruit new correctional officers. I think they're down probably about, 10 correctional officers or so?
It's
right
currently
now?
9.
9. And so we currently have approximately 42 correctional officers, and that includes some variable hours as well. And looking at the retention and recruitment for the past few years, it's been very difficult to get people to come into that profession of correctional officer. We've had a few meetings to find ways we can attract new correctional officers into Clay County. And after one of the first meetings that we had, I decided to go back and look at some history and then also look at some of our county comparables for correctional officers. And in doing that, I found that our correctional officers are about $1 per hour below what our comparable counties are. And so we had some discussions about, would it be worth raising the grade? They are currently on grade 12, and this would raise their grade to grade 13. I think according to your board agenda, I gave you a little summary of what we're trying to do here. The correctional officers' positions were benchmarked during the 2019 market study, and at that time they were 93% minimum and 95% maximum of the market. But with that 7.42% increase, it kind of brought everybody back up. They weren't recommended to increase a grade during the market study, but I think in the past couple years with COVID going on and some of the attitudes and news reports of law enforcement and all that, I think the past 2 years of that category of professions has probably taken a hit. So since that time, there's been, we also have a juvenile detention worker position that is currently at grade 13. And I believe that the correctional officers, we have had some correctional officers move over to the juvenile detention worker because it pays more. And so that's another reason of looking at increasing the grade to a grade 13. They're currently shipping inmates out, as you already know, to other counties, and that is also a cost to the county. I think you're shipping over, what do you say, 18 right now?
18 as of yesterday?
This morning it's 17, but yes.
Yeah. So of course that's another cost to the county for shipping those out because of the shortage of correctional officers. The nice thing about it, and I don't know if it's nice, but due to the turnover of correctional officers, we've saved about a little over almost $33,000 in county contribution because of the new people and the coming in for the county contribution. They get a little bit less than what the grandfathered people are. So there is a savings there for 2021. And we also have I believe you have 2 correctional officers that are currently deployed,
Correct.
which haven't been being paid at that time. If we were to do this, the cost per employee for every new employee that comes in, so if we hire those 9 or 10 employees next year, it would be an additional cost of about $2,188 per year, and that would be having them going from a grade 12 to a grade 13.
Just a clarifier, though, that would be based on the 2021
That's 2022
level,
numbers.
not 2022?
I did the 2022 numbers, yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep. And as far as the placement goes, it always gets a little tricky. In the personnel policy, when we move a position from one grade to another, the definition is that the person would go to the next highest grade at no more than their current,
No less.
no less. So the closest to, but no less than their current wage. And because they're going up one grade, has to be at least 1%. And how the grid works, it's kind of weird because some people get a bigger increase than others. If somebody that was just hired at grade 12, they're going to get a bigger grade increase to grade 13, step 1. And so because of that, their increase is going to be a little bit more because they don't have any place else to go. But some of the people that are at step 4, 5, 6, they may not get as big of an increase. But everybody will be getting at least some increase to their wages. With that being said, I'll turn it over to questions.
We had these discussions in PIC, and obviously, this has been just a constant issue with hiring. And certainly, the PIC talked about this and suggested it come forward right away. So I'm glad you're here today. The one question I didn't have, and I didn't see the dollar amounts here, but, and this might be kind of new terminology for a couple of our commissioners, but does this have any compression issues associated with it?
No, the next position is correctional sergeants, and they are 3 grades higher than a grade 13. And that's what I try to keep at least 3 grades, if not 4, between employee and supervisor. So there would be a little bit of compression, but I don't think that it would be out of the ordinary at this
The
point.
compression is kind of making sure that, you're probably aware of it through with the police department, but it's just making sure that there's, based on your levels of rank and that type of thing, that there's a pay difference that maintains separation. Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. I appreciate that you've had those discussions at PIC. Are we concerned that because correctional officers and counselors have slightly different job descriptions in terms of programming that's being provided, that we'll hear from the counselors at the juvenile center that they're not due an increase?
We've looked at that, and first off, the juvenile counselors themselves, they require a 4-year degree, and they are in grade 16. A couple years ago, and I can't remember, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we created the juvenile detention worker position at grade 13, just for the fact that they didn't have as many responsibilities, and we had a lot of people that didn't have their 4-year degree yet, but they were willing to work in the juvenile detention center, and they were working towards their degree, so they have to have some college credits to get that grade 13. I think with the correctional officers, it's kind of relevant to how we treated the public health nurses for a while. You know, we couldn't buy a public health nurse forever because of the wage differences and everything. And I think, so even though the correctional officers don't have the exact same education experience levels, I think the market is ripe for offering them a little bit more money to come in and get into the system. So that's kind of the reasoning behind that.
Thank you. And then I do have a follow-up question. So out of housing or out of county housing right now, we're looking at anywhere between what, $700 and $1,000 a day? Is that what you've been averaging? What are you
Not
paying,
sure what the-
$55 a day?
$55 a day.
So at 17 today, the county's paying $935. And so I think it's important that we respond to this because we made promises to the public that by their support of a new facility, we would be reducing transportation costs and out-of-housing costs. And understandably, we didn't know there would be such a workforce issue. But I certainly feel if we're looking at significant costs, adjusting this is appropriate.
Commissioner Ebinger, and then Commissioner Kaylee.
Yeah, just to add to Commissioner Mojo's observations here, we put that correctional facility up. We got a sales tax to get the funding for it. And the expectation was that we'd have a considerable savings on these prisoners that we're having to farm out to other jails. We built that facility because the Department of Corrections has requirements, good ones. I'm not complaining about it. We needed a new facility. And we did that to meet the requirements of the DOC. The fact that we can't staff the pods right now to the point where we can sustain our own prisoner population is also part of those DOC requirements. So we need to do this in order to help move towards complying with the requirements that are given to us by the state. In addition to the fact that we want to staff the facility adequately to where it's safe. So I appreciate the effort that's gone into this. I think it's a very responsible use of our funding. And it'll address money that we're having to pay out to other jurisdictions to house prisoners. We have a relatively new facility to put them in. So thank you, gentlemen, for preparing this and at least giving us something to try and address this problem with.
Commissioner Kaylee.
One more thing, too, that Commissioner Ebinger just didn't mention, and that is there's also a burnout issue if we keep asking staff to do overtime. So that's another work-life balance issue. My question is, I saw in the audit list, Candy, Ohio County, is that where we're sending everyone to, or are they?
Yeah, so right now, we need to send everyone to one location, just so it's easier to coordinate court dates and stuff like that. In transports, we start running to multiple different locations, then it becomes a little more difficult for me, because I'm the one having to coordinate all this. And if in the past, it's been 2 full-time officers in the past to coordinate. So not having the staffing, I've had to take that role on myself. And so just to keep that a little easier, yeah, that's where we're sending everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense. How often do we have people going back and forth?
Right now, it's just once a week. Last week, we did have to add a second just for the week, just to try to get our numbers down. But right now, it's just once a week.
So last night I was chatting with one of the commissioners from Candy, Ohio County, and he said they just lost 3 staff members in their facility. So, I mean, this is something we have to do, because here's a facility that we're depending on. Pretty soon they might not be able to staff their own facility, and then we lose that as well. Is this step increase enough, do you think?
I believe for this time it is. It puts us right back into the market of what the market was calling for. And those are 2021 numbers. Now, I'm not sure what will happen in 2022, but I think this would be probably appropriate I mean, if we have to look at it later, we can certainly do that, but I don't want to make too big of a jump, because then we do get into compression issues and that type of thing. So then we're looking at correctional sergeants and everybody else that's in that chain of command, so.
Becomes a complete chain reaction.
Exactly.
And sorry, I have a million questions. The 2 officers that are on deployment right now, do we know the approximate length of that, what that deployment is planned for? And did they indicate that they were planning to come back? I mean, a lot can change while you're deployed, but.
Yeah, so I've had both officers reach out to me recently. Both officers, we've held their positions for them. I think they both intend to come back. The latest would be, they both indicated mid-February would be the latest they would be returning.
Okay.
From their deployment, whether that's they return, they have some separation, leave time allotted to them, but whether they actually return at that point, but that's when they'll be back. Latest, they'll be back in the States.
Thank you.
All right. Well, once again, this is before you, and this comes with a recommendation from PIC to proceed.
I would move to approve this recommendation for the grade increase for correctional officers.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Kaylee, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Jerry.
you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Justin. Thank you. Hopefully that helps. All right. All right, our next item is, we have several items from the Highway Department. First is an amend the MOU with the City of Holly. Good morning, Dave.
Yeah, this has to do with our construction project that we are doing jointly with the City of Holly. It's cleaning up some language of the previously approved MOU. I'll have Justin just give a little update on that.
Yeah, so we brought the MOU, we amended it in December, kind of with cost splits and such, and as we got kind of more into the project, and before we bid it, Holly had so much extra work on the project that was outside the county road. So after talking to MnDOT and the city, we kind of felt that it'd be best for Holly to hold the contract and make the payments to the contractor, and then invoice the county for the work. And that's what they're working on right now, and we're just cleaning up the MOU that just states that the city will invoice the county for the work, not the county invoice the city.
So there's no change in dollar amounts, no change in responsibilities or anything. It's just the one subdivision 7 there on that MOU that says they pay and then we pay them instead of vice versa.
And after talking to Lori and Ann, the MOU does need to get revised to just kind of reflect that so we can make a payment to the city.
All right, any questions?
Now, we had discussion on the highway tracking meeting on this, and it seems to make sense, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Kaylee. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Next, we have a letter of support for 11th Street Underpass grant.
We've been approached by the city engineering group that they're going to apply for a transportation alternatives grant. It would be for a multi-use trail and a sidewalk that would be incorporated into the 11th Street Underpass project. They would just like a letter of support from the county, as we've done in the past, on the project itself, and there would be no additional obligations from the county other than just our support.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Abier, second by Commissioner Mojo. Any further discussion on the motion?
Just a little nitpicky thing. Can we write out transportational alternatives or whatever it is instead of TA grant? Just so I don't know what all your acronyms are.
Sure, yep,
Let me
oh,
know next time.
absolutely.
Thanks.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We'll move on to an update on North Broadway Bridge.
Yeah, we've been working quite a bit with the city of Fargo on the bridge and trying to find some direction moving forward on it. Most recently, I think, did you guys get the survey results? There's a graphical one, and then there was some additional comments that are kind of interesting to read. I know there's a lot of them, but there is some good information in there, and you can really get a feel for the users on there and how they use them and why they're kind of voting the way they did. I believe we got 248 survey responses back, which is about 31%, which seems kind of low. But from the consultant we're working with on St. Paul projects, sometimes they only get like 100 in a large metro area like that. So he kind of said that was really good and kind of feel the same. It's good to get a feel for the folks that are using it. 86% of the respondents said they use it daily or weekly. 91% of the respondents, they did support a new bridge. There was some additional questions on there, as you see in talking, like, the dollar amounts and the thresholds, if they still supported it. And I think as the bridge expense went up a little bit, they maybe went down just a little bit, but for the most part, there was pretty overwhelmingly response that they would like to see a new bridge. The one thing that kind of hit me a little bit in this whole thing is 67% of the respondents felt that the Wall Street Bridge, the other option, does not meet their needs. And then you got to wonder, well, why wouldn't it? It's so close. With the new Amazon store that's out there, and basically the increase in kind of the traffic, the industrialized kind of nature, there's a lot of truck hauling and things going on out there. They felt that the safety was decreased a little bit, as well as a large portion of those folks that do want to get back to Broadway, they would cross into North Dakota and they would go through the rural neighborhoods. And I think everyone realized that's not a good option, but ultimately that's probably what's going to happen. Most of the the folks that want to get to the stores and shopping, and maybe they got workplace employment there, that's the direction they're gonna go. So I guess I did kind of understand that. We are sending upwards of 3,000 cars on an already fairly busy roadway. Can it handle it? Yeah, it is built to handle it, but it's maybe not ideal. So that's kind of where they're coming from. Current traffic on Broadway is just a little bit over 3,000, and that was a 2018 count. So I would assume that it's maybe up a little bit from that.
Is that at the bridge?
Correct. That would be going south of Wall Street on County 1 there, yep. The estimated cost to replace the bridge at the current elevation is about $4.5 million, and that is a 350-foot long structure. In order to build it up above where the diversion flows would go through town, initially it was 17.5, but I think they've since detailed that in a little bit. I got a report just late last night, about $14.5 million. They've got some tie-in points that would be fairly logical. I think at 896 would be the tie-in. The current bridge is at 892, I think, so it'd be quite a bit higher than the existing bridge, which would be good. A lot of things are conceptual right now. There's not a lot of hard, detailed design work, but we're definitely getting things dialed in more than we did, let's say, 5-6 months ago. Both sides, North Dakota, the city of Fargo, as well as our department, we do feel that there's a little bit of an urgency to remove that structure out there. Right now, it's completely closed. Over the summer, we did have some issues with, a lot of folks like to be up in that neighborhood. It's very beautiful. They walk, they bike, and the barricades and things have been getting pulled aside. And I don't believe anybody's been driving across it, but there's been a lot of activity. Our staff has went a little extra further and staked down some of our barricades just to try to increase the safety out there. But if the structure were to actually have a failure, if it did tip, and it would not be good for anybody, to include even the state. It just would make a national news headline that we probably don't want to see. So we're really working hard on trying to get funding in place and get a contract out sometime in the near, maybe 1 year or less to remove the structure until we can decide and get plans done. If we move forward on replacing, to go that route, if we remove it altogether. So in talking with MnDOT, there is funding available for Clay County's share. It's just under $200,000 would be our estimated share with contingencies and a small amount of engineering that is available now, kind of earmarked for us if and when we go that route. So it's good to know that we've got the funds. We don't have to scramble on that. If we decide we're going to take it out in the next 6 months or so.
Are they holding those funds, Dave?
Correct, yep.
For that potential project?
Yep. There is going to be a technical presentation this coming Monday by the Fargo City Engineer Group, as well as SRF, the consultant that's working on this. And there'll be a few of us that'll be attending that meeting on Monday, so there'll be some more.
I think Commissioner Gross and I are going, and Steve is going. I think our highway tracking committee.
Okay.
So it'll be nice to see some information that they have, as well as hear from their current council. That's one thing we really haven't heard yet. Our plan was to try to kind of dial this in a little bit and then get our both elected boards together and start making decisions together, and I think that's kind of where this will start on Monday, so.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. This presentation may be worthwhile to give to the MetroCog group. I understand that's more on the planning part, and maybe because it was an emergency fix, maybe we've kind of bypassed some of those discussions, but I certainly feel that there's so many municipalities and jurisdictions at that table that would be helpful. And a comment on your survey, I think that the response is overwhelming. I've been on this board long enough to know that we've had lots of important surveys that have gone out with a quarter or less of the response from the public. So I really do appreciate folks. How often do you get to a survey and you get to the last question and you just bypass it?
Right.
So the fact that you had so many people responding in the way that they did really speaks volumes for what the community hopes are. It is no question that it's a substantial investment in what costs are. But we do have limited routes across the river. And I understand there's a flood control project being built, but we've all lived in this community long enough to know that there are less options when we are flooding. And so it is important to replace this. There's a hospital on the interstate, but there's also a hospital on Broadway.
You raise a good point. There's, even with the diversion project and 37-foot flows going through town, we still can lose 2 of our downtown bridges.
Right.
Even with the diversion project in place, so it's.
And I just think that from a public safety perspective, it is important, I believe, to repair this, and I'm hopeful that we can find some transportation dollars on the North Dakota and Minnesota side to help offset what the levy burden may be.
Commissioner Kaylee.
I understand that maybe you don't want more than just a few of us, but I'm curious if that presentation will be recorded so that the rest of us can watch it later.
I believe it's actually a public meeting.
It is a
Public meeting? Okay.
It should be recorded, but it'll also be broadcast live. I can get the link for that meeting if you
You're in
want.
the city council?
I think they're having a special city council
They
meeting.
call it a brown bag.
Right, so they broadcast that on the City of Fargo website, but also have a YouTube channel.
Okay. Thank you.
But it's a public meeting, so all of
Yes.
us could attend.
Yep.
All right. Any further information? It's mostly just an update there.
Correct.
Okay, we'll move into item number D, and that's a return to our discussion regarding, we had questions regarding the purchase of the 2 Schulte rotary ditch mowers.
Right, we did go back to the Highway Committee, and we brought our shop staff with us to just further explain in a little more detail, the types of mowers that we're talking about, the history on the mowers a little bit. If you all remember, we initially bought these 4 Schulte mowers in 2016, and it was a big upgrade for us. We were using bush hog mowers at the time. They were quite a bit cheaper, but after about 4 years, there really wasn't a lot left to a point where we would never dare keep them any longer than 4 years. At least that's kind of the way things were. In 2020, we replaced 2 of the 4, which would be which was 4 seasons. They did go up a little bit. They went up about $3,000 in those 4 years. We did 2. We traded the 2 in and got $10,000 a piece for the trade-in back in 2020. We've since kept the additional 2 we mowed, obviously season 2020 as well as 2021. So they've went 4 seasons. Or no, 6 total seasons, which, like I said, are part of the commitment to the Highway Committee and the Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner Gross was if they, it was a big deal. We brought them out to the shop, we showed them all the parts, we kind of rolled our sleeves up and went through them. And the idea was, could we maybe keep them a little bit longer, being that we're spending this additional dollars? And that's kind of what we did. We had a couple of them back in 2020 that we kind of wanted. We thought maybe they should go at the regular time, but we kept the other 2 an additional 2 years, and it has worked out pretty well. I'll let Clayton go into a little more detail, but just the amount of miles and the amount of use that they get is incredible, and they've held up really well. Maybe I'll let you go into more detail.
Bring the rest of you commissioners up to speed, so you get an idea how much we do mow. With the 800 miles of county roads that we mow, obviously you go up and back, let's just use it simple. So, you're right at 1,600 miles. And we do that in the summer, we call it our top cut. So we mow 1,600 right away. Well, then when we go to the fall cut, which is later, early fall into the late fall, we mow an additional, after that, 1,600 miles, we mow an additional about just shy of 5,000 miles. So, you get all said and done, we've mowed with those 4 mowers over 6,000 miles in one summer. And if you divide it out and you take a look at it, now we're up to where when you divide it out, we're mowing 1,500 miles per mower every year. So the 6-year-old mowers, we're pushing 10,000 miles per mower. For those 2 last mowers that are 6 years old, we are at just shy of 10,000 miles. And if you want to put it in perspective, it's 3 trips to the cities at 3 miles an hour, down and back. So that gives you a perspective of how much, if you want to put it that way. We've done well with them, but we are seeing some things on them that those ones that have been there 6 years, we easily could start to have to spend money on them. I'm concerned about that because with everything going on, every day I go to work, I have trouble getting parts for anything. It's really gotten to be a problem, and it concerns me. They're a good mower, but they are made in Canada, and who knows when this whole global thing is going to shut down or get better, because I don't want to get stuck with having trouble getting parts across the border or whatever with what's going on right now. I feel strongly that we should be replacing those two because we've gone 2 years longer than we've ever gone with any mowers in the county. Yes, they've done well. I'm a little reluctant to think that we're going to get another year or two out of them. And then the other thing that happens when if you did do that, the price of the mowers, this stuff isn't going to go down. Price of these products, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a motor grader, a loader, a truck, plow truck, pickup, whatever. Every year price goes up, our use is going to go down in value. And we're going to get further apart as we go. Plus, if we have to take and put repairs into it, I think we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot here. I understand the fact that the price thing is really up there, but me as the person that has to keep them in the ditch and I see them every day, I think it's a gamble myself to keep them. I shared some things with the tracking committee last week, just to give you an idea. It's affecting everything. I ordered cutting edges for ourselves, for the county, in September, and I just called him. It was the day after we met, commissioners, and I asked him where my stuff was at, or I should say the county stuff was at. They said, oh, it was 6 to 8 weeks, and the last shipment this vendor got in, it took them 12 weeks to get it, and none of our stuff was on that. If you think about this, if this goes out and continues like this, I'm nervous because winter could be over before I get my cutting edges. And I'm referring that to the same way with this. Our window is really small for mowing if you look at it in the summertime. And if we start having trouble getting parts for these mowers that are already 6 years old, I got to answer to that, and I don't know how to answer it. I think it's a gamble myself.
Commissioner Mojo, then Commissioner Gross.
If you want to go first, since you're on the committee.
I was just wondering, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but is there going to be if you buy something new, things go wrong with them too. So can you get parts for them many, you think you could get parts for them many quicker than for an old mower?
The thing that concerns me is what this company has done is they have discontinued their Series 4 mower. They don't make that anymore, and that's what these mowers that we have are. They have since gone to the Series 5. I would hope there wouldn't be a problem, but I can't answer that. But they're not going to continue making as many parts for the old mowers as they do the newer ones. Even though they're out there, people are still using them and they're going to be breaking down. I don't know how to answer that, Commissioner. You know, I'd like to say no, they're going to have plenty in stock, but I don't want to shoot myself in the foot, tell you we're not going to have any problem, and then when we do have a problem, I got to explain to you why we're not mowing any ditches.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. This is maybe just a question based on what our policy is. I am in conversation with a lot of our producers about the ability to hay the ditches. And, you know, when was the last time we looked at what the importance of mowing that first round is? I understand that in the fall we want to cut it down because of snow and drifting, but is this an opportunity for us to look at, are we mowing too much in those early seasons? I know your staff has a lot of work, Clayton. And so does it make more sense that maybe we cut back on what that service is to allow producers to hay more?
Well, the thing with the early mowing is we know how tall the grass gets on the shoulder of the road, and it becomes a safety issue where it gives the public traveling on the county road to see the skunk, see the deer, or whatever jumping out of the ditch. It gives them 15 more feet to see that by cutting down the tall weeds on the shoulder of the road.
And I completely understand that. But my Norwegian family, when they came to visit, said that we love coming to the Red River Valley because you can see your dog run away for 3 miles. And so, you know, I think we've all driven in northern Minnesota where that's maybe more of an issue. And I'm just trying to, maybe it's time to discuss that to ease the burden of what that is, Clayton.
The other thing I wanted to make a comment on too was that now that the county has extended that, so we have 2 mores at 6 years, and if we purchase now, which you're gonna be doing, we've proven that we were able to get 6 years out of those mores, which we've never been able to do with any other brand more out there. So that tells me now that now we can, instead of every 4 years buying 4 mores, it'll be 2 mores every 3 years. Because if we buy these 2 now, when the 2 that we bought previously, then we're gonna end up, did I say that right?
How many more do you have?
We got 4 mores. We bought 2 years ago. We buy 2 this year. So it would be every 6 years, we're gonna take and replace 2 mores.
4 years would be replacing 2.
Yes,
in
and
6
4,
years.
so, yes. I got myself confused there, apologies.
Hopefully it doesn't go up 87% each time.
I struggle with it too, and I'll be honest with you guys, every day I go to work, I wonder what's gonna be a challenge for us to try to buy or get. This isn't good and it's not going away. Every vendor that I deal with, whether it's for maintenance supplies or this big equipment, whatever, none of them can give me an answer that says, you know what, it looks like in 18 months we're gonna be doing better. All of them say that this is gonna be years before we get out of this.
The only reason we're even having this conversation is because it's an 87% increased price. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be having this conversation here about the need to replace them.
And then, like, the other thing we talked about was, for the rest of you commissioners, is that one of the reasons they're higher too, though, is that they quit building the Series 4, they went to a Series 5. So this new style more is more expensive to start with. And you take that and add it with all the rest of the surcharges and everything, I mean, it just gets way out there. But we are purchasing, this more is a better more than what the previous ones were, with the improvements that they've made to it.
Mr. Cayley.
So Dave, last time you were here, there was concern about the price jumping up in November. Is this
Right.
still the price that you were presented
I think where
last
we're
time?
at now is that current surcharge, the steel surcharge is at 9%. So that's gonna go up to 12%. They did price protect us. I checked after the last meeting, so it's not gonna go up. But it is gonna go up towards the end of the month, but they're gonna price protect.
They'll honor that for now.
And I think that additional 3% is about $1,500 or so per mower.
And the way they explained it to me is that the surcharge, it just isn't the steel prices. I mean, this is a global thing. I mean, it's paint, labor, transportation costs, steel. They're basically trying to hedge their bet to protect themselves so they can stay in business, because they don't know what these are all gonna go up to. And I don't like it, but, you know, I guess if I was in business, I'd want to try to protect myself too. It's just that we're paying the brunt of what's going on right now. But every vendor out there, whether it's our motor graders or trucks or pickups or chainsaws, any of the stuff that we're purchasing right now, everything is just going through the roof. And I'm struggling with getting parts right now. I'm trying to order ahead of time and everything, and I guess I'm just nervous about trying to keep these last 2 and try to get another year or 2 out of them. I think we're really stretching it.
Well, Clayton, I really thank you for coming today. I like hearing from the guy that's gonna end up fixing it, the guy that's gotta order the parts and,
Fixing it, part of it is the simple part. Right now, it's trying to keep up to be able to have the products to fix them. That's really gotten to be a problem.
And it does come down to a public safety issue, because if we're not mowing those ditches right at the end of the year, then we do get the drifting on the roads, and then we do have more problems all winter long. So Thank you.
Commissioner Abinger.
Yeah, just the reality of it, and the people I've heard are saying for the next 5 to 10 years, is that prices are going to go up and availability is going to go down. And this is something that we need to be able to maintain. So I think the reality is we're not going to wait this out. So I'm going to go ahead and move that we approve this purchase.
I will second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Abinger, second by Commissioner Kaylee. If we have any more comments, Commissioner.
Just for a point of discussion, so the older 2 units are going to go up for auction on min bid.
Yes, we'd like to try that to see if we couldn't also get a little additional higher price on the trade-in on them or the salvage value. I think we were quoted $7,200 per piece, so we would put that as the reserve bid, and hopefully we maybe get a little bit more.
All right, any further discussion? We do have a motion and a second to proceed with the purchase. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign? Aye. We have one opposed. All right, that concludes your items. Thank you. We will move into committee reports. I'm going to start to my left today, Commissioner Abinger.
Busy week. I've got to find my notes here. On the 16th, Thursday, I attended the Clay County Planning Commission meeting. I was attending. We had 3 approvals of a solar garden locations in Clay County. And Commissioner Mojo, this is her committee, had a conflict with one of them, so I was there to vote on that. I'm going to yield the rest of the meeting, which was interesting and complex and lengthy, to Commissioner Mojo so she can address the issues we covered. The next day on the 17th, I attended the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC Executive Committee. We discussed the nomination committee and some recent positions on the board and executive committee that needed to be filled. We discussed setting a special closed meeting to discuss the executive director's salary and discuss some of the core purpose issues that came up in the recent retreat. There's also going to be future office needs with the planned co-location with the Chamber of Commerce and the Fargo-Moorhead CVB. And we looked at the 2022 proposed budget. On the 18th, Thursday, attended virtually the Clay County Suicide and Substance Abuse Coalition meeting. We discussed Moorhead's tobacco ordinance. Jason McCoy, the substance abuse specialist with the county, indicated that as a celebration that Moorhead did pass a flavored tobacco ordinance. Summary of the last 2 years, and we discussed potential state law on flavored tobacco. Karen Nitskorsky and Rory Beal covered the suicide prevention part of this. Discussed a grant to Clay County to build a comprehensive approach to suicide prevention, and discussed several other grants that are out there currently in the county where they're working with students at DGF schools, the Ulan Hitterdal School District. Talked about some mental health programs that are being initiated through a survey of the New Americans, and talked about some of the Moorhead Youth Alternative Learning Center and high school and middle school students and some of the work's being done with them. Later that day, I attended the Diversion Authority Board meeting at Fargo City Hall. Had an executive director report from Joel Paulson. He is having regular meetings now with the Triple P partner, the Red River Valley Alliance, and they're talking, linking them with the chamber now to get some plans for bringing in staff and office needs and that type of thing. The infrastructure bill is going to have an impact on the Army Corps of Engineers' $180 million budget. It's a good opportunity for some of our funding needs to be met. We met the new land director, Jody Smith, started on the 1st of November. Had presentation from General Counsel John Shockley. The environmental impact plan has been submitted to the Minnesota DNR, and he's working on distributing the $435 million from North Dakota Finance Authority to be used on this project. We also looked at the draft of the 2022 budget that's been put forward. Later that day, I attended the Lake Agassiz Regional Library Board meeting. We had Doug Greeley as a new member who was sworn in. He's representing Moorhead. We had some lengthy action we took to transfer the insurance coverage for the library system over to the MCIT, Minnesota Counties Intergovernmental Trust. We had discussed the quote. There were some requests from MCIT for changes and updates on the joint powers agreement and some of the bylaws that we covered. Just set up a hold harmless portion in the joint powers and clarified the records maintenance at the main library and the ratio of citizens to representative on the board. And we got those straightened up. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Kaylee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On Tuesday, the 16th, I attended the Adult Mental Health Local Advisory Council. That group is made up of consumers of mental health services, providers of mental health services, and county representation as well. The idea behind that group is to have a good discussion on where consumers and providers are seeing gaps in services and to identify ways that we can fill those gaps, how providers discuss their wait lists. And so if somebody has a wait list and somebody doesn't, they know who to refer their clients to. That's a really great meeting. And we would like to expand the people that come to those meetings. They are public meetings. And consumers of mental health services that attend regularly would be eligible for a stipend for attending those meetings. The next meeting is going to be Tuesday, December 21st at the Clay County Family Service Center. So I would invite interested citizens, if you are a consumer, if you're a provider, if you have a close family member that's a consumer of mental health services and you just want to be a part of that discussion, please join us. We invite you to do so. More information on that meeting can be found on the county website under the committees and councils link. At our next meeting, we will vote on recipients for next year's stipends. And how those stipends work, there's 9 stipends. You have to be a regular attender and be considered a member of that group. And then if there are any stipends for people that aren't attending, then there's a drawing of folks that do attend if they weren't voted in. So good updates from a lot of the agencies that attended. It sounds like folks have pretty full wait lists and caseloads. There was a lot of discussion about clients struggling with getting scam calls and understanding what those calls mean and if they're real or not. And so we talked about how providers can work with their clients to help them with some of those issues. Then on Wednesday, the 17th, I attended the Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County meeting. We had a report from Mark Peel, who just does such a fabulous job of providing resources to the county. I know so many folks turn to him when they're doing genealogy research, and he does great presentations, and he's just a wonderful resource for the county. We also went over the emergency succession plan for the society. So in case the director were to die suddenly, what would happen? Where do we find all of the information? Who's got the keys? Who's got the passwords? Who's got the codes? So they have put together a really great plan. It was nice to see that work. They're also in the process of raising money for an update to the Yemkamp Ship Gallery, so all of the signage and displays in that gallery. And the FM Area Foundation has a caring catalog that is coming out, and they'll be listed in there. There's also a Sons of Norway match. So if you are a member of the Sons of Norway and also would like to contribute to this Ship Gallery campaign, just let the Sons of Norway know or write on your check note that you're a member of the Sons of Norway so that they can get that match there. I also attended the substance abuse and suicide prevention meeting that Commissioner Ebbinger reported on. There's a lot covered in those meetings, and so sometimes I think it's good to have two of us listening, but you did a great job reporting on that. I don't have anything to add there. Friday the 19th, I attended the Early Childhood Initiative. That group is made up of all manner of agencies serving families with young children across the county. So there's county representation, there's community action representation, child care providers, mental health providers. There's a lot of people in that room, and we really have a great discussion, and it's a very supportive group. This time, I was so pleased to see that there was a new child care center attending, and that's the Jasmine Center from Fargo. They're a nonprofit child care center focusing on, or specializing in rather, culturally competent care for our new American refugee and immigrant populations, and also serving those in with low income as well. They've got a great business model, and they are looking to expand into Clay County. They're just looking for a location and some startup funds for that. So there's ongoing conversations about different ways we can help get them into our county. That would be great. West Central Initiative reported that they are hiring 2 new positions that I think are going to be fabulous and very supportive for our child care crisis that we have. One of them is through Child Care Aware to help new providers navigate the process of becoming licensed, opening their center, and doing so in a financially sound manner. This is a position that we had in the past, and then the funding went away, so it's starting up again. They know that in the past, child cares who have utilized this support last longer. They also have become better connected with the Parent Aware program to become rated, which means that they can get those CCAP funds. The next position that they're hiring will be a recruiter for early childhood mental health. So this recruiter will be working with our high schools and young folks in the area to help get people started in their education and career path towards early education mental health provider positions. We also took a long time to work through the proposed work plan for next year. Some of the big events that the ECI has done in the past and is planning to do again would be the Kids Fest event, which hundreds and hundreds of people come to. I've been a part of that for many years, even before I was a commissioner. That's a really great event to get families connected to the variety of services that we have around the region. And then the second event would be the longest table. That has only happened once in the past. It was supposed to happen again, but COVID kind of put the kibosh on that. The longest table is an event where residents from all walks of life, all of our little micro communities are invited to sit down and have a meal together and talk about what makes this a good place to raise a family. What are some of the struggles that you have? And to just really get to know each other and to get to know somebody who maybe has different life experiences, maybe comes from a different background. That first event that we had, we noticed that the diversity in the attendees wasn't as reflective of our broader community as we would have liked. And so we're hoping that with the next event, there's a way we can provide some kind of childcare situation so that more families with small children feel able to attend. That concludes my reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gross.
Last Tuesday, we had a PIC committee and we discussed, James discussed a nursing contract. Sort of gave us a sticker shop. It's going to be almost, I think the current contract is around $340,000, and it's going to go over double that this coming year. So I don't know where we're going to come up to. It's going to be, they're going to check what, see if we can get a better deal yet or whatever, but we're working on that. But that was a surprise to all of us there. We also discussed the correctional office staffing, which we already took care of it at this meeting, and some other upcoming sheriff's department stuff that will probably be coming up next year. Then we had highway tracking. Most of the stuff we had Dave covered today this morning, the meeting, the 11th Street underpass, the contract with Moorhead, Schulte Motors, North Broadway Bridge. Some things that weren't brought up this morning at the meeting were subdivision contracts, or we're going to charge the subdivisions for cleaning their places or maintaining their places, because they take a little bit longer to clean. So should there be a different rate for subdivisions? Another discussion item was, I think there's a highway building in Hawley that highway department may be looking at, so that was all the items we discussed there. That's my two meetings.
Thank you. Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. Last week, I attended the Red River Water Management Board meeting, talked about general business. We reviewed the funding commitments that are withstanding. They approved the Rosa Red River Watershed District funding request and the United States Geological Survey stream flow monitoring contract. They discussed the flood damage reduction work group teams and gave an update on the new website designs. Last week I attended the Planning Commission meeting as Commissioner Ebbinger reported on. There was one request for an interim use permit in Holly Township for an existing dwelling that did pass. There were, as noted, 3 conditional use permits for 1 megawatt community solar gardens, one in Kurtz Township, one in Alliance Township, and one in Holy Cross Township. Those did pass. There was discussion, though, on the application from Holy Cross Township, as there was concern from the Diversion Authority. This solar garden is currently on the north side of the proposed embankment for the Diversion Authority, and wanted to make sure that it wouldn't impede with it. It actually, I think, is a really good use of land, as the land would be parceled out into an unfarmable piece of land. So the farm owner was happy with that, so those did get approved. And then there was a petition for rezoning property from resource protection, biological resource protection, and there's an aggregate overlay as well. There was substantial discussion, and one of our board members who also serves on the Barnesville Planning Commission really did offer some important information in how Barnesville, their planning area, just moved forward in something similar in terms of trying to make an agreement to really benefit both sides. And so there's information that will be coming forward to this board. I'm not quite sure if that hearing's been scheduled yet, but certainly within the next month, this board will see that. We then also had an update from Adam Altenberg from MetroCog on the Clay County Comprehensive Plan update forthcoming. And there is currently an opening for the Board of Adjustment, looking for a board member there, and the Planning Commission is also taking applications for a planning commissioner. The next day I attended the Prairie Lakes Solid Waste Management meeting. Commissioner Campbell does sit on that as the main delegate, so he can provide any further updates. But there was a significant discussion in terms of wages for the employees, and I know that this is not only one department or only one committee that we're all hearing it. It's certainly something that all jurisdictions are making are needing to look at, and so I think there will be some more information at the maybe January meeting, I believe, to make sure that those wages are on par with what the averages are for anything similar. The next day I attended the Wild Rice Watershed meeting. There were updates on community flood protection and talked about general business. And then they did approve an engineering and design servicing contract for Roy Lake. And then the next day I attended the Diversion Land Management Committee meeting. There was updates from the Cass County Joint Water Resource District, and I provided updates from the MCC JPA. We did meet the new lands director, Jody Smith, had a property acquisition status report, and there was a question on the already mentioned solar garden in Clay County. The next day I attended the 100 Rural Women with AMC Extension Committee. Those are ongoing online connection discussions that revolve around programs that Extension provides and also women in leadership. That was the wrap up of all the focus groups from all of the different Extension regions. Really good information. I know Commissioner Gross has said this a lot. Extension has such a wide breadth of programs that are out there, and sometimes it's about making sure that the public is aware of that. So I think one thing that really came out of that is that a continued effort to make sure and promote Extension's programming. That same day, I attended the MCC JPA committee meeting. There was one negotiation summary on a property that was landowners had come forward for an early acquisition. In terms of flexibility, I appreciate the fact that the Diversion Authority and the MCC JPA will continue to look at those and make sure that we're working with the landowners. We also had 4 organic farmland appraisals. We did approve those, and I understand that those are a benchmark, but I continue to think that organic piece is really important because it's not like conventional farmland. You can't just go and transfer that over to any other farmland. There would be some sort of hiccup in terms of making sure that anything purchased is rolled over. I believe that's about a 6 to 7 year certification process. So I have had conversation with farmland owners that are concerned about that. So my hope is that we'll continue to work towards finding suitable resolution. We did talk a little bit about the solar garden application for the planning commission, continue to think that that's a great use of alternative ground. And in 2022, we just approved the farmland lease templates that will be going to the negotiation with producers. That afternoon, I attended the MetroCog Policy Committee meeting, lots of discussion, lots of RFPs that are going out. Of note is the 25th Street Corridor Study. They did approve the RFP for that, and there is a 2021 Metro profile that will be coming out, which will be a handy document to have as we make decisions. One proposal, the MnDOT grant application, was approved. That is a lighting project for the two interstate interchanges for I-94 for Barnesville. There's two of those. I did state that Clay County was in favor of rural lighting projects. That's really something that's been beneficial for our county roads. It appears that that will be a state-sponsored program, and so more information will be forthcoming. Yesterday, I attended it's a busy week, Lakeland Mental Health Committee meeting. We did have an update from the personnel. They are needing to add a 1% COLA to their contract negotiations for 2022. Another maybe fallout, if you will, from some of the workforce challenges that we have. Currently, they've been able to mitigate openings, but did note that there are currently 8 therapist openings with Lakeland, and while margins continue to be healthy, it's difficult to maintain those with such a substantial opening. It hasn't been substantially reflected in the access times for the Moorhead Center, but they're continuing to be creative in how they offer appointments. There were no updates from the collaboratives, and noted that all of their facilities are able to offer access times within 30 days, and did state that currently Sanford has over 100 people on waiting lists for therapy access. Currently trending more than 204 new and reopened cases this year. That's individuals, more than 200 where we typically stand for this year, and are working on recruiting and offering psych services online. We did have a discussion on turnover. Currently this year they're at 11.32% turnover more than where they usually are. That's higher than the state and national averages. And I think as this board moves forward in evaluating new requests for hiring, I think it's important that maybe we track the turnover. Darren, I'm looking at you, where we're currently at and maybe where we are in years past. It just goes into that workforce piece and how we fill those. And talked about the COVID OSHA mandate that continues to be, so many different organizations are in the process of trying to plan for that, what that means. Yesterday, we did have the ARPA committee meeting. We had a request from Janelle Cheney from probation on contract work for those pretrial investigation needs that are required by the courts, and she was able to provide information that I think is really reflected of the backlog that's happened because of COVID and court hearings, and so I believe that request will be towards this board. It's about $25,000 to pay for with ARPA funds, maybe in the next week or two. We also talked about the OSHA requirement and in dealing with our internal needs for staffing and developing what our policy will need to look like for that, and testing, as Commissioner Campbell discussed with Kathy McKay earlier. We that cultural and diversity positions, excuse me, those positions went live on the website, I believe, yesterday for application. Okay, so by the end of today, they will both be online, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. On November 15th, I attended the Personal Issues Committee, and Commissioner Gross talked about that, and we were reviewing the corrections in the West Central Juvenile Center's nurse contract. And, you know, the sticker shock that Commissioner Gross was talking about, not without getting too far into the weeds here because it's early in this, but there was some looking at potential changes to that contract. And some of the early numbers are we could go from a current budget of $425,000 to $850,000. Part of what we were looking at, though, there was not a comparison necessarily of apples to apples type of a thing. So we did ask them to go back and look at a closer comparison to current contract. The correctional staffing, we did deal with that this morning as a board. On that same day, we had a highway tracking committee meeting, and Commissioner Gross reported on that. I don't know that there's anything for me to add to that. That same day, I also attended an executive meeting of the Diversion Authority, the chair's call. And again, we were just reviewing some board policies. On November 17th, I attended the Prairie Lakes meeting. We did get a plant manager report that's doing well. Our budget is in line with what we had anticipated. We did have a conversation regarding the labor market and cost comparisons. One of the issues that's going on there, and typically in Clay County, on our grades and step, you know, they can come in and they have the ability to hire in step 1 and then step 2 or 3 with our administrator's approval. What's happening at Prairie Lakes right now is they're having to go to middle steps just to get somebody. And, you know, we basically as a board, we said, well, if that's the case, it's just outdated. And then what happens is they also reach their maximum step in 2.5 years because they have to start so far up on that scale. So we gave direction at our last meeting to have that. We authorized I think they're going to go with a company similar to what we just used for our recent wage study to, as quickly as possible, work on that to get that. Obviously, there needs to be something done with that. There was a little discussion about the OSHA standards for COVID vaccination. And we did get a final MCIT payment request for the insurance, which we agreed to pay, and we will be done with them. And that's just on the building. Then on November 18th, excuse me, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. On November 18th, we did have the MCC JPA meeting, which Commissioner Mojo talked about. And we also did approve a relocation appeal policy and procedure in the event that somebody isn't satisfied with what is determined to be their relocation benefits. And a couple of task orders that we modified and then the American Rescue Plan on November 22nd. There was a request from Highway to do a service counter issue there that we believed was a proper request for American Rescue. So we did suggest that it move forward. In addition, there was a request for building some permanent walls. We had a lengthy discussion on that, and right now we're questioning whether or not that's in that particular case, it was appropriate funds. It didn't appear to be COVID-related, and, you know, so we referred that request to our building committee for discussion. Again, we talked about the federal vaccine legislation. I think you're gonna, Steve, you'll talk a little bit about that Ignite in your report, all right? Oh, yeah, okay, that's. And then I also attended yesterday afternoon. We have a group that's meeting to discuss future governance modeling for the diversion authority as this thing transitions into more of a project, and how future committees will look and work. And that was all done based on recommendations that happened during the last full board retreat, where all board members from all entities had an opportunity to give feedback as to where this project has been and where it's going and how it should look going into the future. So it's been a really good, and that's been spearheaded by Jeff Schatz, who I think has done a really good job in coordinating that effort, along with Mayor Carlson, who was the current board chair. Then I did want to report then on the 17th, I was invited along with Mr. Larson to attend a discussion regarding workforce issues, and that was at the request of Commissioner Chad Peterson from Cass County. He had invited myself and Steve and Robert Wilson, the Cass County administrator, and then we had Joel from Greater Fargo-Martin EC and Shannon Full from the chamber, and we just started having some discussions about workforce issues and how these are all impacting all of us. And right now we're kind of all going in different directions, and can we be trying to come up with a plan where we can all kind of help resolve, and the whole thing is about how are we going to recruit more people to this area to help satisfy our workload needs, whether it's new Americans or whether it's immigrants from other parts of the country. You know, we definitely need to expand our workforce, and so that's what that discussion was about. And I did just want to go back, and I wanted to talk a little bit about when we were talking about that ditch mowing issue, and I was really interested in Commissioner Mojo's discussion about the potential for haying some of that. I think that's something that should go back to our Highway Tracking Committee meeting, and we should have further discussions and maybe have a dialogue at the township level too, to see, you know, I see there's certain times of years where we seem to have an inadequate supply of hay or feed for our ag community, and if this could be another potential way that we could come up with a partnership to allow more of that to happen, I think it's really a deserving topic to discuss. And so thank you for that, Commissioner Mojo, and I think we'll try to put that on highway tracking to move that forward. That concludes my report. Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the 16th, I participated in the highway tracking that has been covered by both Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner Gross. The 16th, I also participated in the PIC meeting that has also been addressed by commissioners. I would note, just for commissioners' knowledge, Joanne from Experience Works, who's been our front desk face at the Family Service Center for the last 7 years, has exceeded her time of being able to be with that program, and so Joe is working with Met to have a further replacement for someone at that window. But we thank Joanne for her years of service. On the 17th, we had management. We talked about COVID, the diversity positions, and also requested that, again, that our departments take one last look at their 2022 budgets. On the 17th, I also went with Dave Overbo and Joe, and we toured some of the buildings in Georgetown, Felton, and our Uland shops, as we have some of those up as part of our bonding projects. 17th, participated in the workforce discussion that Commissioner Campbell just addressed. The 18th, we had a department head evaluation and also MCC JPA meeting that's been addressed by Commissioner Campbell, Commissioner Mojo. On the 18th, I met with Joe Olson and furthering that discussion about with generator needs in the resource recovery facility. Joe is going to be having some answers as the board has requested here in the coming board meetings. On the 19th, I met with Matt Jacobson from Planning and Zoning. We looked at a proposed timeline for the completion of our comprehensive plan and transportation plan. I think right now we're targeting the end of January, first part of February. In regards to Commissioner Mojo's public hearing, we will probably have that resource protection biological overlay. Right now we're tentatively looking at December 21st for that public hearing. On the 19th, I also had discussions with Lori in regards to the budget. My intent next week is to bring forward just a review of the 2022 preliminary levy. There were a series of different things on that budget that at least two items that the board said that they would like to re-look at prior to the Truth in Taxation, which is going to be on December 14th, and so I'll be looking for some direction from this board moving forward there. I would just continue to note that our sales tax continues to come in strong. Right now, in 2021, we're collecting at 20% higher than what we had anticipated, and also 20% higher than what last year's collections were. And so it's a quite an amazing thing to see month to month. We continue to see growth. On the 22nd, we had the ARPA meeting. That has been again covered by Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner Mojo. Yesterday afternoon, I participated in a meeting put on by the City of Fargo, led by Desi Fleming and our public health staff, with other administrators and managers in the Fargo-Moorhead area. They discussed the syringe service program and provided kind of an oversight, and they've seen some significant growth in needs since the program has started in 2018. They provide some needle exchange, Narcan, sharp containers, and wound supplies for those in needs of those services. Currently, Cass County Public Health covers the cost of that program, which is about $130,000. That's grown from $25,000 in 2018. And so just wanted to make some awareness to that and some further discussion. Notified part of the discussion was that approximately 215 people come from Minnesota that have used this through October, and 169 of those have been Clay County citizens, which are about 20%. And so, and just for the board's knowledge, the closest facility or program that works with the same service would be White Earth. So those will be some further discussions on that. Just of note, again, we're having board next week. This board took action on previous action that we would be having a board meeting on the 5th Tuesday and not on the first Tuesday in December, because you guys will all be at the AMC conference. I did yesterday, we talked about one of the issues in our budget is the Ignite program. The Ignite program is a workforce tool that we saw had presented before this board by Shannon Full earlier this year. The request that Shannon had made of our board was be a $50,000 annual contribution. In our 2022 levy, we have earmarked $25,000 for that. And so one of the things that we had asked the chamber was to provide what different agencies have agreed to participate in that, and so we'll have some additional conversation about that on that topic next week when we look at the 2022 budget. And with that, I think that concludes my report.
Thank you. Brian, anything today? Colleen, anything else for us? Anything else? All right, we're adjourned.